Welcome to dbt-GA4 Setup, Install dbt-GA4. I'm Damon. In this lesson, we're going to install the dbt-GA4 package in your dbt Cloud project. Let's jump right in. Let's set up our dbt Cloud project and connect the dbt-GA4 package. So here I am in dbt Cloud. We're in the Cloud IDE here, and the first time you log in, there's not much you can do. So first thing you need to do is initialize the dbt project. This creates your basic set of files. So you see here you've got this folder structure. Analyses, these are for models that don't run on a schedule. You want to run them periodically. Macros are reusable code. Models, this is where we put our model files, and you see here they've got some example models which we're going to delete while we're here. Seeds are for CSV files. That any CSV file in the seeds folder gets turned into a table in your warehouse. Snapshots are for periodic data that needs to be defined differently depending on when you're interacting. So for example, sales regions. If you have sales region definitions and you use one definition for a year, and then the next year you change the definition of your sales region, then you use the snapshots to save the old definitions so that when you're processing old data, you're using the old data, and then the new data gets the new definitions. This target folder, this holds the actual files that run against BigQuery. So it's quite useful for debugging. The tests folder is for data integrity tests. So dbt has some default tests that we define elsewhere. These default tests do things like check whether a field is not null or verify that the field is unique. This test folder is for advanced tests that are more specific. But the generic tests are quite useful and get you very far. We've got gitignore, a readme, and a dbt-project.yaml file. The dbt-project.yaml file is your main config file. So first thing in here, name of the project. So we're gonna use the name. I use a short name because you have to put this in code at times. So since I'm carrot juice, CJ. Profile, this is used for connecting locally. You don't need it. Here you can change the names of these folders. We're gonna leave them alone. And then they've got these model configurations. These model configurations, however, we've gotten rid of the example folder, so we'll just get rid of all of that. We'll add some configurations. We hit save, and now we're going to install the dbt-GA4 package. So what we do first, we're going to create a file and call it packages.yaml. Create, and now we'll go GitHub. Just scroll down to the documentation, installation. So install from package hub. This will do just fine. Copy, and we hit paste, and we're just saying get the version, the dbt-GA4 package that is greater than 6 and less than 6.1. Hit save, and now dbt Cloud is going to do a dbt-deps command, which is for dbt dependencies. So you see it succeeded. If you're working locally, you would have to run that manually to install the package. So the first thing you see, we've got a new folder here, dbt packages folder. And you see the target and the packages folders are gray. And the reason for this is they're not checked into source control. So the target contains the actual code that's run against the warehouse. And then the dbt packages contains the files from the packages that you're downloading. So we see here, we only had the one GA4 package installed, but there are two packages here. And that is because the GA4 package has its own packages.yaml file, and that installs the dbt-utils. So this dbt-deps command, it looked at our packages.yaml file, said, oh, I need to get this version of the dbt-GA4 package, got that version of the dbt-GA4 package, which has its own dependency on dbt-utils, so it went and got dbt-utils. The next thing to look at is, if you look at these package files, this folder structure you'll see is very similar to your project folder. In fact, a package is basically a dbt project. So you've got analysis, macros, models, seeds, snapshots, tests, unit tests, which is special. So the folder structure doesn't need to be exactly the same. Sometimes, for example, the dbt-utils package, it has a bunch of macros. It doesn't have any models. So it doesn't have the models and analysis folder. But essentially, a package is a project within a project. So these are the dbt-GA4 files, and they're gray because they are not under source control. Now, let's close this out. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you will see that we have this error here. It says none type object cannot be interpreted as an integer. And the reason it's complaining about this is the parser sees that we have some variables in the dbt-GA4 package that are required that don't actually exist yet. So here we go into the dbt-GA4 GitHub, and we see here we've got this required variables section. There are two versions, the regular and then multi-project. Since this is a single site, we'll just do the regular. Come here, paste. So we've got vars GA4. Now source project and property ID we're going to get from Google Cloud. The start date is the first date to load. And then static incremental days. This is the number of days to process. So if you're using daily, data can be reprocessed up to 72 hours later. So on daily, you want this to be 3. If you're using the streaming export and only streaming export, then you can set this to 1. So let's go look at Google Cloud, and we see here, this is my GA4 export into BigQuery. We copy the dataset info, copied, come back here. The project is CJ Data Warehouse. The property ID is the 244 at the end here. And start date, let's do April 1st. We hit save. Now the parser's thinking, and it says it's ready and we're good to go. Now, one thing I want to do before we process the data for the first time is, if you look, for example, here in the GA4 package, our models, we divide our models into staging and marts. So the staging contains all of the homework, all of the processing that goes into getting the data ready for end users. The marts contains data marts, and data marts are meant to be consumed. So these are the processed data that we want people to interact with. So to make this easier on the people who need to work with this data and build reports, we're going to split the data. So we're going to split the marts from the staging so that people don't need to see all of these tables when only these tables are relevant. So what we do, we're going to add a models block, models, and so GA4, and then it's marts. So models GA4 means we're in the GA4 package. It's the inverse. We're in the models block, so the GA4 models in the marts folder, and we're going to do a plus schema, and I'm gonna call it analytics. You can call this whatever you want. You could call it schema marts if you wanted. And then the other thing we're going to do is this will put the data marts that are in the package into a separate data set in BigQuery. We want all our project data marts to also be in that same data set. So here, models, you scroll up, the name of the project is CJ, so these are settings affecting the project. Under GA4, there's settings affecting the package, and I'm going to use the same folder structure. So I have a marts folder, and then we will do plus schema :analytics, since we want them to be in the same place. We hit save. Watch the parser is good. And now we're going to do dbt run. And it should take about 20 seconds or so. And so you see we have an error on these staging traffic sources and staging traffic sources daily. And that's because the first time you use the package, you need to do dbt-seed. The dbt-seed command, it takes the seeds and creates tables. So in dbt-GA4, we have this GA4 source categories, and this is the mapping for referrers that should be something other than a referrer. So social sites, shopping like Amazon, Google search. So that's what the dbt-seed command does. And now we can go dbt run. And there, run succeeded. We've built out all the files. And now if we go into BigQuery and we refresh, and you see here, now we have this dbt-GA4, which is my development set. These are all the staging files, all the staging models, and then also the data marts under dbt-GA4 analytics. And then later we're going to create a production set for people to work with. But this is, you can see that the marts are divided nicely from all our staging models. And that is our basic setup done. To recap, you should now have dbt-GA4 installed in your dbt project. I'll see you in the next lesson.